Okay, so we have this function right here, f of x is equal to 3x squared minus 5x minus 2 over x squared minus 9. And we need to, first step, factor the numerator and the denominator. So we're going to go ahead and do that. The top one's a little bit tricky to factor, and then the denominator, when we factor it, what do we have? Difference of two squares, x plus 3, x minus 3. Next step, we're going to set my denominator equal to 0, but I'm going to ask first, are there any common factors between the denominator and the numerator? So there's no common factors, and therefore there's no what? No holes. So all we have to worry about is our denominator, when our denominator is equal to 0. So when is x plus 3 equal to 0? And when is x minus 3 equal to 0? So my vertical asymptotes are going to be at x equal to 3, negative 3, or x equal to. Okay, next thing we're going to look at is where's my function equal to 0? So where is f of x equal to 0? And where f of x is equal to 0 is also where what is equal to 0? Your numerator. So wherever my function's equal to 0, that's also where my numerator is equal to 0. So you need to take your numerator, and I'm going to take it in factored form, and set it equal to 0. Take each one of those factors, set them equal to 0, and solve. X equals 2 and x equals negative 1/3. So somebody had mentioned it before. What are these called here? What are we looking for? If y is equal to 0, x-intercepts. Good. So my x-intercepts are going to be negative 1/3 0 and 2 0. Okay, the next thing we look for is where is f of 0 at? So we're going to put a 0 in wherever we have an x. And I'm actually going to go to my original function to do that because it's not easier. So I'm going to take 3 times 0 squared minus 5 times 0 minus 2 over 0 squared minus 9. You see what ends up happening? Wherever I have an x, what happens to my term? Cancels out. So I don't need to worry about any of my x terms, and I end up with negative 2 over negative 9. Simplified makes 2 over 9. And what is this called? Y-intercept. Good. So your y-intercept is going to have coordinates 0, 2 ninths. Next thing we need to figure out is our horizontal asymptote. So let's go back to the beginning. And is our horizontal, do we have an even degree, or sorry, an equal degree, a different degree, one bigger than the other? What do we have? They're equal. So that means that we're going to take what divided by what? Okay, good. So we're going to take the coefficient of our x squared in the numerator, and we're going to divide it by the coefficient of our denominator. So my horizontal asymptote becomes, HA is going to be 3 over 1, which means my equation is going to be y equal to 3. Good. Great. I'm going to zoom this out a little bit, because important things that we need to know. We need to know our vertical asymptote, so that's important stuff. We need to know our x-intercepts. We need to know our y-intercept. We need to know our horizontal asymptote. And what else do we need to know about our horizontal asymptote? Does it cross? Does it cross? Does my function cross the horizontal asymptote? So that's my next question. Does HA crossed by the function? Okay, so my horizontal asymptote is 3. I'm going to set that equal to my function. So 3 equals 3x squared minus 5x minus 2 divided by x squared minus 9. How do I solve this? Okay, I'm going to multiply both sides by the LCD, which is x squared minus 9. And on the right side, the x squared minus 9 should cancel out. On the left side, what am I going to be left over with? Okay, so how about 3x squared minus 27 equals 3x squared minus 5x minus 2. Get your x squareds together. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 5x to the left side, and I'm going to bring the 27 over to the right side. So I'm going to be adding 27 to the right side. So I brought the 5x over, made it positive. I'm going to bring the 27 over, that makes it positive. So I end up with 5x equals 25, or x equals 5. So does it cross my horizontal asymptote? Yes, it crosses because we have a value for x, right? Because our value for y was 3. We said, okay, what if our function's equal to that horizontal asymptote? What's going to happen? Does it cross? Yeah, no, it crosses 0. Remember, up until this point, all the examples that we've been given, it was 0 equals negative 3 or negative 2 equals 0. It didn't make sense. It makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, so it crosses at 5, which is my x coordinate, and 3, which was my horizontal asymptote. So that's important. Okay, we're going to do a sign chart. And I have lots of factors, so I'll make sure I give myself some room here. And I'm going to have a vertical asymptote at x equal to negative 3. So this is negative 3. Little question mark like Carl. There's my vertical asymptote. I have a vertical asymptote at, a vertical asymptote at 3. And we're going to put a little question mark there. We have our x-intercepts. We need those when we go to do our regular graph. But we also need them for 0 on this particular graph. So one x-intercept is at negative 1/3. So that's going to be like right in here. And the other x-intercept is at 2. And with Carl, he puts a 0 there. I use a squiggly line. So I know that I'm dividing my graph at my zeros and at my vertical asymptote. Okay, then you're going to put your factors on the left side here. And my factors are 3x plus 1, x minus 2, x plus 3, x minus. Go ahead and fill in the sign chart. Okay, so when we're less than 3, negative 3 rather, this is going to be negative, 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 negative. Overall, my function is going to be positive. Good. Between negative 1/3 and negative 3. So I'm just going to pick negative 2. This is going to be negative, negative, positive, negative. So overall, I'm going to be between negative 1/3 and 2. I'm going to pick 0. Good. So it should be positive, negative, positive, negative. Overall, we're going to be between 2 and 3. So I'm going to pick 2.5 plus, 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 is be negative, and then to the right of 3, they should all be positive. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and draw my graph. I'm going to try to line it up with my sign chart, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to draw my graph. Remember to put in your horizontal asymptote at y is equal to 3. Okay, does everybody have their asymptotes in? We're all good with our asymptotes? Okay. Next, you want to graph your zeros. So we have x-intercepts at negative 1/3, 0, which is like right in there. We have an x-intercept at 2, 0. We have a y-intercept at 0, 2/9. So that's between 0 and 1, just a little bit above. So those are all my intercepts. I've got all of my, okay, now the other thing I want to probably graph is where I'm going to cross my horizontal asymptote, which is at the point 5, 3. So that's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now we're going to look at what's happening on the left side of negative 3. We are positive. We're not crossing the horizontal asymptote there, correct? We're not going to go negative. So we could be up in here and be positive, but when we try to approach our vertical asymptote, it ends up being negative. So we can't do that. Got to remain positive, so it's going to be up in here. Then between this 0 and my vertical asymptote of x equal to negative 3, I'm going to be negative. So that means I'm going to go from this 0, I'm going to be approaching my vertical asymptote. Then between negative 1/3 and 2, I'm positive. And so I'm going to be up, and I have to touch it 2. And then between 2 and 3, I'm going to be negative, so that means I'm going to be going down. And then to the right of 3, I'm going to be positive, but I'm also going to cross. So I want to make sure that I remain positive, and it's going to be kind of hard to see on this paper here, and I'm going to over-exaggerate. You wouldn't see that quite this obviously on your graph if you were to graph it. So to be positive and approach the vertical asymptote, I'm going to be going up here. I'm going to be coming down close to my horizontal asymptote, and I'm going to cross it. And like I said, I'm going to over-exaggerate this. I'm going to come down, and then I'm going to go back up. So I will be approaching my horizontal asymptote, but instead of approaching it from the positive side, I'm going to be approaching it from the negative side. All numbers still are positive. Here's my x-axis. That makes sense? Okay, so that's what happens when you cross a horizontal or a slant asymptote. You can cross a slant asymptote.